Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another round of Coffee and Questions. What's today's topic? Let's talk about roll-lock abrasive wheels, or twist lock. Now, I've got 1-inch, 2-inch, and 3-inch mandrels, we'll say, and they look like this. And I'm going to leave you the links below. Now, the one that I use the most often is the 2-inch, but I have an assortment of stuff because I've tried all this stuff, and they work good for certain things. Like I have this Avanti, I'm going to call it a stripper. It's like super coarse. Now, I had some steel that had paint on it. This thing got it off in a split second. It works good. It's got good longevity. This wheel was actually, like much bigger, and I use it in my air-powered die grinder, and it spins and it just strips that stuff off like it's nothing. But once I got it stripped off, or like you saw in my other videos, the plasma cutting and the MIG welding and everything that I do, and you saw the burrs that I used, sometimes I want to just get in there with, just the sanding discs. So what do I use? Okay, it depends. All right, so I'll give you an explanation. This is just a cutoff wheel that it was in the box. Okay, so these right here, these are some of the Roll-A-Lock ones. These are from 3M. These are 60 grit, okay? Now, they come in different grits, of course. You can get them from all the way down, to 36, and then all the way up to 180, 220, whatever you want. But for steel, I don't have that wide assortment. But I concentrate on cleaning up the steel edges and everything else. So the 60 grits and the 80 grits work good. If you've got something really damaged, you can go for the lower grits. If you want to really polish something, you can start going up through the grits. You can go 60, 80, 120, 220, whatever, and then you might have to switch over to random orbital or something if you're doing something really elaborate. Now, the other thing that I do, especially with the 3-inch one, and here I've got a 3-inch roll-lock disc, and you'll put them on. I'm going to stop. I'm going to show you a slideshow real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so you kind of get the gist between the Arbor Sizes. 2-inch I use most of the time. 3-inch one comes in real handy if I'm doing like the ways on my lathe, or I'm doing like the top on my bandsaw or table saw or drill press or anything like that, and I want to clean them up. These come in good. But then what I also use is I use Scotch-Brite pads. Okay, now this is a 2-inch one, and I'll shoot oil or something on the bed of the lathe or whatever, put this on there, use my tool grinder, my air tool grinder, and I zzz, then I go all over it. It gets rust, it gets everything off, makes it shiny clean. I wipe it down, and then in the end I put a coat of Johnson's paste wax. So that's what I use personally a lot of the Scotch-Brite stuff for, and maybe for final polishing once in a while on metal work. But leading up to that, whether you're talking about the 2-inch or 3-inch, you have these flap wheels. Now they work great, and you just put them on here and twist lock these down, and you're good to go in an air die grinder. Okay, so what do I buy? I buy from ABN, I buy from Benchmark Abrasives, and I buy from 3M. And I'll leave you the links on all that stuff below, and you can go over to Amazon and check them out. But the focus today is going to be on the ones I got out at Harbor Freight. And I'm going to try and see how those work and how they hold up to these other name brand products, let's say. Let me show you. Give me just a sec. Okay, so while I was out at Harbor Freight the other day, I thought I'd like to try them because the store is always in my pathway when I'm working, and I can always stop and pick up more, and it's fast, it's convenient. Otherwise, if I'm not in a rush, I've been getting them off Amazon. Like I said, all the links are below, but let's talk about the Harbor Freight ones. This is the Warrior brand. Now, I went ahead and I bought the 100 grit and I bought the 180 grit. So I'm going to open them up. I'm going to hook this up onto one of my die grinders. I'll get one of these metal projects, sheet metal projects, and I'll be right back with you, and let's see how well they hold up. Now, I'll tell you something about using any of these on sheet metal. Sometimes it's not the best idea, because when you go to get into an intricate space on sheet metal, that sheet metal with this thing spinning can tear up your wheel. It'll also tear up these discs, flap wheels, you can if you're not careful. So you might want to get in there with a burr or something different than using these. But I've used these. Yes, I've damaged the arbors. I've learned the hard way because, you know, these arbor pads, they're rubber. And so with this thing spinning, I mean, it can cut them to the point where they're not usable and you got to get another one. So be careful on sheet metal, first tip. More heavy duty steel, MIG welding, stuff like that, these work perfectly fine. Okay, so let's stop. Let me get this hooked up. We'll meet you over at the workbench. Okay, so here's one of those Cocapelli cutouts that we did a while back with the plasma torch. And so here I just touched it lightly, but this whole thing has been gone over with 60 grit. So I'm gonna go ahead, I don't have the 80, let's try the 100. Let's see what happens. Okay folks, so you saw how I did that Cocapelli character with those Harbor Freight discs. Now the question is, how well did they hold up and are they worth buying? At first I would have told you no, because here's what happened. And again, this is sheet metal, so I can't fault the discs themselves. But I got several of these and they just literally broke, or this nub got busted off inside of the die grinder arbor. And somebody was like, well, you know, you got to get an ice pick and spend all this time digging it out. Well, there's another simpler way. So let me explain. Here's the arbor right here, and it has a nut on here. If you loosen this nut and take it off, there's a hole that literally runs through this piece of rubber all the way to the front. Take an Allen wrench, about the same diameter, maybe a little bit shorter so you don't ruin the threads. Put it in there with a short side down like this, and you'll feel it stop. Then hit the top of this with a hammer and just move it around. And I did this like over a pair of vice jaws that were open just a little bit. I just held it by hand and I hit it like 2 or 3 times. It popped right out, where I got to the point where I could twist it out, then you could twist another one on. So you're not sitting there digging with an ice pick or some kind of a sharp instrument. This, to me, was kind of a fast, easy way to get out a broken plug. If you know of a better way or something else, I mean, go ahead and drop it in the comment below. But that's what I found worked easiest with these. Now, this one here, I've only got sanded using the 100 grit. Okay, so now this one right here, the big one, I went ahead and I did with 180 after the 100. And there's still some scratch marks in there. So you can get a higher grit or you can use random orbital. And from that 180, I would go to 220 and spend your time with the random orbital. And each series that you jump, I never jump more than 50 grit, or I try not to. You have to get out the previous grit's scratches. The best way to do that, again, I've said this in my videos before, is go to the dollar store, pick up a pair of these reading glasses. These, I think, are either 2 or 2.5 times. And I've got another pair out here in the shop for woodworking, because you always want to get out the previous grit scratches before you move on to that next grit. And the higher you get, you can see right here by looking, if I get out all of these, you can make it almost like a mirror shine. I mean, really, if you want to go that far, if you're not going to paint it. Now, the other thing to get out some of these, you can use 3M pads, and those 3M pads with a Scotch-Brite kind of surface, you've got coarse, medium, and fine grit. So that's your choice. Now, I don't have the fine grit in the roll locks, the twist locks, but you can do that if you really want to get something that shiny, and I have not taken it that far, but you could. I've done it in the past. So those are my thoughts on this. Now, would I buy these Harbor Freight ones again? The answer is yes, because what I learned with sheet metal is you can snap these easy, like I said, and damage them, but on flatter surfaces, they tended to hold up perfectly fine. I mean, now, are they the best? No. You can get 3M, ABN, like I said, they're going to be a little bit better, and they're going to last you a little bit longer, but I found the Harbor Freight ones very useful, so yeah, I would buy them again. And most of the complaints, like I said, are because I think that people don't realize you might not be using them right, because if this thing catches, and I don't even care if you're using the ABNs or whatever, you can snap that little plastic plug that holds it in, the pad here. So, a lot of this relates to the use and not so much the product. I mean, so I found that, using them carefully, they work great. those are my thoughts on this. I'm the home handyman. I hope you click subscribe. I hope you keep following us, or me. And I'll alert you on more deals. I got another one coming out shortly on some bargains that I ran across. We'll talk about them, but I want to get the products and actually demo them first. You folks have a great day. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.